I'm sitting here. I'm Jackie Greene. I'm sitting here in East Nashville with David Rawlings. It's my honor to be here, man. So, I mean, how did you get started playing guitar?
The origin story of me playing guitar is like, I've thought about it a lot because it was an odd circumstance. I was with a friend of mine. I'd been quiet for a minute, and he said, "Dave," and I said, "What, Glenn?" He said, "So you should ask your parents for a guitar for Christmas." I said, "Why?" He's like, "Well, I'm going to ask my parents for a harmonica." I said, "Well, why?" He goes, "And we're going to play Heart of Gold in the talent show.
Kidding.
We're going to win the talent show."
You guys are big Neil Young fans, babe?
Yeah, I mean, he had an older brother, and even though it was sort of old music for the time, he had kind of turned me on to Neil Young and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, right, and his dad had one Bob Dylan record, and so my parents went down to Save Right and bought this little tiny harmony. I still have it.
You still have it?
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. I started and I got these Mel Bay books, and they're all single note stuff. Mm-hmm. They're, so I'm going through these books, and as I said, I started late. I was 16 or whatever, but I think my hand-eye coordination was pretty good, I'm pretty sure, because of video games. So as soon as I picked up a guitar, I'm like, I can kind of do this. Right. But then I still didn't know how to play Heart of Gold, which was the point. Like, I had no idea. I would listen to it, and I'm like, there's so much noise. Like, how do you make all that noise? And I'm going like this, and I'm like, that doesn't sound like Heart of Gold. And no one had ever shown me a chord. So it's funny that I think that in some ways that shaped my guitar playing, though, because I ended up playing lead, even though I did eventually learn to play rhythm. But
you learned to play
where
chords.
I started. The first couple months when I was struggling around by myself, I was literally only playing single notes.
So like it's almost like you went backwards. Like you started by playing lead before you learned chord shapes.
No, and then
how they relate to each other.
And I finally met another kid who played guitar.
Right.
And his dad.
He's like, play G, and you're like, what's G?
Oh no, he's like, okay, you got to play Heart of Gold. That was really close to the talent show. He's decided he'd join the band.
Right.
So he took me in, and he said, the first thing he showed me. No, he showed me. That's how he showed it to me. But he showed me that, and then he put me in a bedroom, and he said, "Now don't come out until you can do that."
In time.
Yeah, which I couldn't, but I just sat there for day after day and doing that. And I mean, I think the repetitive part of that is a great thing for beginners to realize that if you can break it down into tiny little pieces and then learn those pieces.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's the only way to really do it.
Yeah, that's
and there's so much a reward out of like that was. I mean, the first time I was able to sort of hold those down and make that sound. It's such a beautiful sound. If you love music, you kind of. And
you start recognizing, you're like, oh my God, an E minor chord, and then you start hearing it.
Right.
And, you're like, oh my God, it's in that song.
Right. Well, there's the great Townes Van Zandt used to say, I learned E minor, and then 3 years later I learned another chord. Because it was fine. That was enough.
That got you through a happy,
write a lot of songs
career,
with just that one. I mean, I play a lot in minor keys. I like minor keys.
That's so beautiful. Just that kind of fascinates me.
Well, I mean,
you're listening to the.
I'm just listening
to
where you're going with it. I mean, I don't know. I did a lot of that when I first moved to town because I played some with Gilly and Welch, but I would just play with different songwriters, and they'd say, "You want to come play guitar with me?" And I might make $6 or $18. And gradually, I guess you just try to train your ear to have some idea where stuff is going.
Do you have any horror stories of being on stage and everything goes wrong?
I mean, I think everybody has that.
I had wondering what yours are.
I had some of that last night.
Did you? Everything goes wrong.
Okay, the funniest story I have is I played with it. I had a friend, and one day I think he called me up and he said, "I got this crazy guy. He's a rockabilly singer and player. I don't know, like maybe gets pilled up or something, but he like hops around the stage kind of like a frog, and he's real erratic. He's a little bit of a weird guy, but you should go and do the gig. They're fun. It's like a lot of energy. So I'm like, okay. And I got up on stage, and there were maybe 20 people in the audience. So we start going through this rockabilly stuff, which I can kind of play.
Yeah, let's do.
Well, I mean, I don't know. You know, I had a Telecaster at the time, but you know, it was just all you kind of. He was doing. I think he was kind of playing. You know, he was one of these like he was like the acoustic guitar player in a rockabilly band, and I would play whatever I was playing. You know. So this sort of stuff's going on. And his singing isn't, you know, maybe the best, and he is real, I mean, he's wide-eyed. I don't know what's going on, but he keeps looking over at me, and people are just leaving. So by the end of the first set, there's nobody in there except the bartender. Literally everyone's been driven off, and he's decided that it's because I'm a real bad guitar player. So he comes over and starts yelling at me, you got fire in you, you're not gonna get to play the next set. So I'm like, cool. And so I get off stage, and then he immediately starts the next set, but all my gear's up there. So I remember I sat in the audience, and I was like, this is interesting. You fire somebody out of your band so that you have an audience.
Because you're the only person.
I was the only person there. So me and the bartender sat there. I sat and I had a drink at the bar.
Like, this band really is terrible.
I'm like, wow, I got to wait to the end of this to get my stuff. So I guess I'm the audience. So that was one of my favorite, like... I always kept in mind, though, it's a good thing to have a big band, so you have that option.
Dude, that's awesome. So this is what is this, an Epiphone?
This is an Epiphone Olympic is the model, and as far as I know, it's the cheapest thing they made in 1935.
That's a 35.
But I found this up in a friend's garage slash basement, and it was just on the workbench. He had a lot of musical instruments, was a good musician, and I just picked it up. It didn't have strings. It was filthy dirty. It had all this sawdust piled up on it and all over it, so you couldn't see what kind of guitar it was. You could just see the shape of a guitar under sawdust. Right. And I think Gillian was there, and she kind of brushed that off, and I was like, Epiphone, cool. And I'd already had an idea. I kind of wanted to try an archtop for playing with her. And I brought it, I went and got it, I brought it home, I tuned it up, and I just hit a G chord on it. You know, it's just like, that sounds okay. I liked the way at that time this harmonic rang a lot on it at that time. And then strangely, we started to make the first record, and on the first day, I played through all the guitars that I brought, which wasn't that many, but this was the last thing. And as soon as I heard it through a microphone and out of speakers,
out of the control room, you're like, that's it.
I was like, I love this guitar.
Yeah. Well, let's play a little something then.
Well, what should we play? I'm trying to think.
I'll just noodle.
Do you want to do wait, you were talking about that.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Oh, I don't know if that's the right ending. Maybe a little too sad to go out on.
I love it. I think it's great. I think it's awesome. David Rawlings, thanks so much, bro.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Awesome.
I had a great time.
Man. We'll do it again.
Yeah, I hope so.